Welcome back to whoever's out there. It's so good to see you again, and if you're just joining, hi, I'm Water the One. I post fun content like this one, so if you're interested, consider subscribing, and check me out every Saturday. Now, today, I'm talking about 5 people who I think should lead the X-Men after Cyclops. For those of you who don't know who the X-Men are, they're a group of superheroes created by Marvel Entertainment. They're mutants who are taught by this man named Professor Charles Xavier, who created a school for mutants to teach them how to use their powers correctly. And today I'm going to be talking about who should lead the team after Cyclops either dies or retires from being the leader. So, this is purely who I think who should lead the X-Men afterwards. I would love to hear what you guys think, so tell me in the comments who you think should lead the X-Men after Cyclops. And without further ado, let's get started. Number 5, Jean Grey. Jean Grey is the wife of Cyclops, and honestly, I can see Jean Grey becoming the leader after Cyclops, because one, like I said, she's his wife, and she was also one of the first students of Charles Xavier, so she would be one of the first picks to be the leader after Cyclops, because Cyclops was also one of the first students for Charles. She is very self-leadership. She does a great job leading the team, like, through tough decisions. Of course, she's not the leader, Cyclops is at the moment, but if she were the leader of the team, she'd actually do a pretty good job of becoming the leader and leading the team through really tough decisions in case they fall. Because we know the X-Men, they're very outgoing. They do their own thing. They don't really think of this as a team when it's not in their best interest. Take Wolverine, for example. He doesn't follow the team's orders. He goes out on his own and does that. But I feel like since Jean Grey is actually pretty responsible to be the leader, she actually keep the team in check more, as well as she'd be able to keep more of a calm, steady head in battle. More like, not saying that Cyclops doesn't keep a calm, steady battle. Like, he's a great leader, but the problem is he kind of just, like, makes a plan and just goes straight into it. He doesn't think of the alternatives of what the team may face. He just goes straight into battle after making a plan and then just hopes for the best that the mission comes out great, which is not actually a good leader. What a good leader should do. A good leader actually needs to think of how the plan will turn out and all the outcomes that would happen to it. Jean, on the other hand, actually thinks through that because she's a telepath. She thinks through it. Also, her power actually would help get more villains to get information out of villains more, as Scott would probably just punch them. So, Jean's actually a pretty good leader, not only because she's Scott's wife, but because she's actually she has a calm, steady head to be a leader. Therefore, Jean Grey actually does die a lot in the X-Men genre. Count how many times she's become the Dark Phoenix and died. Like, it's not even funny anymore. But really, that's the reason Cyclops has retired from being the X-Men. In the original series of X-Men, he retires after Jean Grey supposedly dies before she comes back to the Dark Phoenix. But nonetheless, even though she does die a lot more than any of the other X-Men, she is still a great leader. And I think she's actually a prime person to become the leader if Cyclops ever were to die or retire from being an X-Men. Number 4, Storm. Storm's actually the second in command to Cyclops, so honestly, I don't know why I didn't think of this one as my first pick to be the next leader for Cyclops. Storm is very much like Jean Grey in a sense, but she's different in a way. Like I said, she is the second in command as of right now to the X-Men, other than Scott. But like Jean Grey, she does go in more of a calm. Despite her power being like the weather goddess or whoever she calls, she's basically a god in some sense because she is an Omega mutant threat, as in displayed in the show from X-Men 97. They call her Omega Mutant, but despite her immense power, on the of her increasing power, she is actually pretty calm like Jean. She does think more, even though she does lose control of her powers a lot. She has been taken over by a dark spirit or some other, and she can't control her powers. But she is still a pretty calm-headed person in the X-Men, and since she is second in command, she would be a good leader for Cyclops. Even though Storm does have her issues in the X-Men universe, such as she does have a fear of, she does have claustrophobia. She is afraid of tight spaces, but the X-Men all have a weakness. They all have a fear. They all have bad things that have happened to them that sometimes sometimes distract them from the actual task at hand. So, yeah, Storm may have some problems with the leader, considering she will have to make the tough decisions. Even though when Cyclops has left before in the past in some of the X-Men universes, she has been taken over for him. I don't think she would be good at once to make the tough decisions for the team at once, but she needs into it because of her friend, because of the other X-Men's support. And also, like I said, she is a calm-headed person. She does figure out her problems very quickly. Therefore, she does still have claustrophobia. Like, that will never change. She is claustrophobic. But she does get through her problems. When push comes to shove, she will get through it. And despite, like I said, despite her immense power, she is pretty calm, and she actually does it pretty well of knowing that she needs to control it more. She does need to control it more than you think she would control it, actually. Number 3, Beast. Now, I know this might come as a surprise. Beast is not really the most prime X-Men that you might think of to be the leader after Cyclops, but he is actually a pretty good candidate to be the next leader, because 1, he's actually pretty smart. 2, he's very kind. Like, if someone was in trouble, he would be one of the first people who would say, we need to take this person and we need to help them. 3, he's basically the X-Men's technician already, so him being the X-Men technician plus him being the leader, you got a perfect leader right there. Therefore, Beast does have his flaws at points. Sometimes when the people he loves is threatened, he does go a little. He does get into a bit of a fit rage and goes off his own and doesn't really listen to the team. But that's to be expected. Any of one of us, in human or mutant, in the real world, actually, we would do the same thing. We wouldn't want to see the people we get hurt love, and if we find out who was responsible, yeah, we'd probably go after them and want revenge. Because that has happened before. In the original 1996 X-Men series, the woman that Beast loves, who is a human, gets captured, and Beast goes into basically a rage fit, and he goes to stuff. Well, as Jubilee said it, I can't believe Beast went berserk, and Wolverine was actually the smart one for once. Yeah, that's basically how that went. But yeah, but like I said, any one of us would do that. Any one of us would lose control over the people we loved if they got hurt. I know I would. But Beast is but most of the time Beast is actually pretty cool-headed to be the leader of the X-Men, because he does actually keep the team's best interest in mind, and he is also one of the few X-Men that actually think that maybe humans will actually see us for who we truly are, and we're not monsters. We're actually just people. But that being said, all the X-Men try to see that way because that's what Charles taught them. But Beast, out of everyone, is actually one of the most people who actually see it more than actually think it. He's one of the people who actually, when it comes to face to a human, they call him a filthy mutant or a freak. He's one of the people that won't just blouse out and punch him like Wolverine would. But he wouldn't complain, he'd just try to communicate with them and just try to work something out, because he truly believes in Charles's dream to be to make a human mutant coexistent world, because that's what he truly believes. So with him being a leader of the X-Men, he would actually strive to make it more of that dream. He would actually be one of those people who would actually just try to get along with humans in a mutant human world, and maybe he'd actually one day succeed. So, Beast is actually a pretty good person to be a leader, because he actually thinks that there is hope for humans to actually accept mutants for who they are in that world. Number 2, Gambit. Yes, I know Gambit is not really the one I usually pick for being the leader, but after seeing more of Gambit, I actually see him as a pretty responsible X-Men, and I actually see him becoming the leader more. Such as, like, yeah, sure, he is more of a carefree X-Men. He does things, like, kind of dumb sometimes, but he does care about people. Like, he cares about Rogue. If Rogue ever were to get hurt, he'd rush out of the building to save her, with or without the X-Men. And honestly, even though he shouldn't do safety in numbers and go with the other X-Men, that's what a true leader does. He goes out to find the people that he cares about and knows that he needs to save them, and that's what a true leader does. And honestly, Scott doesn't really do that. He does that most of the time, but there are a few times where he has actually left the people just to get everyone else out. Like, I'm referring more to the animated series in this sense, because in the first episode of the original X-Men series, he leaves Morph behind so the rest of them can escape, which really makes Wolverine mad. Understandable. But if Gambit is actually really responsible. You may not think that when looking at him, and yeah, sure, in the early days, I really think the creators of X-Men tried to make Gambit he's more of a side X-Men who really doesn't care about the rules, and really, why would he? He was raised in a swamp. But as he grows as an X-Men, he realizes that he needs to take responsibility, and he does actually. He takes responsibility a lot. And that's what a good leader should do. He learns from his mistakes and improves from them. He takes who he wants. He takes his mistakes and then makes it into one of his great strengths, because that's what a leader should do. Because whereas Cyclops does that, he doesn't always do that. Sometimes he just blows past of what he does wrong and things like, oh, I'm the leader, I know what's right and what's wrong, I don't need to worry about mistakes. But true leaders need to learn from their mistakes and listen to their teammates, and Gambit has learned from his mistakes over the years, and he's actually become really responsible, like I said. Like, now in the X-Men universe, he would actually be pretty responsible in missions and wouldn't always, like, I'm not saying that a leader shouldn't be funny and kind to people. Like, that's what makes Gambit so likable in the X-Men universe, is that how his persona is. But we also need a leader, but the X-Men also need a leader that is serious and learns from his mistakes and is actually good at leading the team. And Gambit has actually grown more responsible as his time in the X-Men has grown, and that's truly what the X-Men needs, as a strong, competent leader who knows what to do and is responsible, whereas still kind and funny in a way, because the X-Men are still a family, not just a team, they are a family, and family needs someone that is laughable and likable. Number 1, Wolverine. So yeah, Wolverine I feel like would be a great person to lead the X-Men. And honestly, when I first got into the X-Men, I thought Wolverine was the leader of them. Because in every single poster that you see of the X-Men, Wolverine's in always the front. He's like, and everyone else is behind him. And usually the leader is always, and usually in TV shows and movies, the leader of a team is usually at the front of the main poster, because that's the main focus. That he's the leader, that's the main focus. So, in almost every poster that you see of the X-Men, Wolverine's always in the front and everyone else is behind him, and that's usually signified, this guy's the leader, so he's the leader of this team. But no, when I go into the X-Men, Cyclops is the leader. And honestly, I'd always preferred Wolverine to be the leader. Honestly, if I ever thought Cyclops would ever leave or die, Wolverine would honestly be the one I think step up. Besides Storm, I think he'd be the one that steps up to lead the team. Whereas Wolverine has the most issues out of all the X-Men. He has had his memory wiped, he's had the most pains enduring, and he does not listen to orders whatsoever, even though he was in the army for years. So, out of everyone, Wolverine has the most problems as an X-Men, and he may have the most problems with listening to the team and listening to their ideas. But once again, like Gambit, Wolverine has actually grown to listen and respect the team more, not just go out on his own. And therefore, not only am I thinking that Wolverine should be the leader of the X-Men, he has been the leader of the X-Men in some cases. There are like 2 shows where Wolverine has been the leader of the X-Men. Wolverine and the X-Men, which sadly got canceled, which it didn't. And then there was X-Men Evolution, once again sadly got canceled. But in those 2 shows, Wolverine is the leader of the X-Men. And honestly, even though he's harsh, he's cold, he doesn't learn from his mistakes more often, he's still a really great leader to fight, because he needs to work on making a plan more. He needs to focus on listening to his team. He needs to work on a lot of stuff that make a good leader. But like I said, he has grown to respect and listen to his team more in the X-Men universe, and I think he would actually be a really good person to lead the X-Men. Once again, always thought Wolverine was the leader of the X-Men until I watched the X-Men. Because the first introduction I had to the X-Men was that one crossover episode they had in the Spider-Man animated series, and Wolverine was the first one to come out, so I always thought Wolverine's the leader. But then I watched the X-Men series, and Cyclops the leader. So, honestly, I honestly want a universe where Wolverine is the leader of the X-Men in the main universe, even though those 2 shows that I mentioned are technically universe of the X-Men. I want to see, like, the original animated series, or the movies even, to make Wolverine the leader. Even though the live-action movies with Hugh Jackman kind of made Wolverine more like the leader than Cyclops ever was, because Cyclops is mostly gone the 3 main movies and Wolverine's the leader. I'm talking about the animated persona, to be honest, in this one, and I think Wolverine would actually be a pretty good person to lead the team. Even though he has some things to work on, he has grown more like Gambit, and he would actually be a good person to lead. And that's the 5 people who I think should lead the X-Men after Cyclops dies or retires. What do you think of this list? Should I have added more people? And yes, before you say, I know Magneto should have also been a prime thing, but I don't really see Magneto as the leader of the field team of the X-Men. I really mostly see Magneto as either the villain of the X-Men, or the person who would take over after Charles dies. And I'm not talking about who should take over for the Professor, I'm talking about who should lead the X-Men in the field. Even though Professor Xavier is technically the big leader of the X-Men, he's the leader of the school, but Cyclops is the leader of the field team. I'm talking about who should lead the field team. So Magneto wasn't included in this because I don't feel like he'd be a good one to lead the team in the field. More like I see him as taking over for Charles. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments who you think should have who you thought I should have mentioned, or let me know who you think should lead the X-Men. Wyatt, signing out. But remember, peace and kindness, the things we need most. Stay wild.